Rumble. We are live on Rumble, live on YouTube. Hello and welcome. Good morning to This Date in History, aka TDH. I am A.O. Xander. I will be joined by the Golden Loon here pretty soon. And of course, you viewer are you. Thank you so much for watching. This show is about interesting and important events that happened to date throughout the annals of recorded history. Starting with, in the year 72, Pope-elect Stephen was selected Catholic Pope only to die of a stroke 2 days later. That's rather unfortunate right there. Moving on up to 1490, the first dated edition of Maimonides' Mishneh Torah was published, a code of Jewish religious law. All right, and that's what this image is right here. Moving on up, what else do we got here? English separatist Puritans John Greenwood and Henry Barrow were tried and sentenced to death on the charge of devising and circulating seditious books. What constitutes a seditious book, one may ask? Well, I mean, you know, more censorship and all that stuff. Moving on up to 1752, Canada's first newspaper, Halifax Gazette, published in Halifax by John Bushell. All right. 1752 as well, Pope Stephen II elected to succeed Zacharias, only to die 2 days later. So here we go again. We had this first article, he died 2 days later. Then this other one here, died 2 days later. What's going on this calendar date? 1752, and then... Whoa! Hold up a second. Wait a minute, hold on a sec. Stephen II, and this is Pope-elect Stephen. Okay, something weird is happening. 752, Pope-elect Stephen was selected as the Catholic Pope only to die of a stroke 2 days later. So I don't think he even got into the papacy. And then 1,000 years later, to the exact day, Stephen II was elected to succeed Zacharias, only to die 2 days later himself. There's some weird conspiracy happening with this. Can somebody out there look into this? Did these two events actually happen, or is this a confusion? Because this is weird. Moving on up to 1775, Patrick Henry proclaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death," in a speech encouraging Virginia troops to join the American Revolution. Yes, I'm all for that. You know, like, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. You know, and that's very easy for people to say. You know, but when it's time to put your money where your mouth is, very few people actually follow up on that.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Yes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Let me get down here.
Yeah.
Golden Loon here.
Now, I want to go back here, and we do have plenty of time and everything, so sorry for the viewers that I've seen all this part before, but I just want to bring the Luna here up to speed.
I'm making you do a rerun.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're only a couple minutes late. But no, 752, our first article here today. 752, Pope-elect Stephen was selected Catholic Pope only to die of a stroke 2 days later. Okay.
Whoa, that's the first one?
Yeah, well, that actually initially wasn't going to make it into the show if it wasn't for this other one that I'm going to get to. 1752, so 1,000 years later exactly.
To the day.
Pope Stephen II was elected to succeed Zacharias, dies 2 days later.
Are you kidding?
This is weird.
Whoa.
Stephen I in 752, Stephen II
1,000 years later.
in 1752, and they both died 2 days later.
Jeez, that is
weird. So that's why I'm wondering, is this a confusion? Did somebody, somewhere accidentally put a 1752 and they meant Stephen II? Because these are essentially the same article, but separated by 1,000 years.
And a typo, maybe.
Yeah, but
so they got entered 1,000 years later.
So
could be a typo.
Yeah, but
do they both say one or two?
No, the first one is just Pope-elect Stephen.
Okay.
And then this one says Pope Stephen II was elected to succeed Jack.
Yeah, that does say the second. Don't have my glasses. So it says the second. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is more than just one mistake.
Yeah.
If this is a mistake.
To be too.
Well,
I don't think it is. I'd like to go to the archives and see if that's accurate.
Yeah, and you want to talk about strange coincidences.
Yeah,
that's weird. That's almost conspiracy level. Something's going on.
As they say, there are no coincidences.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are.
But yeah, like we also have like the first says 1490, the first dated edition of Maimonides' Messina Torah was published, a code of Jewish religious laws.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Don't review everything here.
Okay.
That's not fair.
Well, I gotta read the 1752 one. Canada's first newspaper, the Halifax Gazette, published in Halifax by John Bushell. So, and that's this, the Halifax, so the Canada's first newspaper. You're from there, so it's
Yeah.
And then we have the Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death. So now we're caught back up here. Moving on up to 1794. Let me double check if my music is playing. It is good. 1794. U.S. inventor. Actually, yeah. Well, I guess it would be U.S. by then. Inventor Josiah Pearson patented a cold header rivet machine. And that's what did. This is Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death. It's a rivet machine. I guess making rivets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
1839, the first recorded use of OK, or all correct, appeared in the Boston Morning Post.
What does it stand for?
O-L-L, all correct. Like old man winter, but with another L, so like all.
That term's
all
very,
correct.
I guess very old. I didn't know it standed for all correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to think, O-K-A-Y, I'm okay,
Yeah, but where does the okay come from? It's got to come from somewhere. All correct.
All correct.
But you think it would be all correct, AK?
Yeah, in Old English, though, like, there's
that's what I'm
old
saying.
in,
No, it's coming from a very old term.
Moving on up into...
I wonder if O-L-L is in the dictionary.
Old. I don't know. That's a question for our audience.
Let us know if someone figures that out, please.
Yeah. 1840, John William Draper took the first successful photo in the U.S. of the moon using a daguerreotype photograph in New York City, and that's what this. This. Well, I guess it's actually I don't. No, I have not. I moved this over here. Here we go.
There we go. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, so that's the first picture of the moon taken from the U.S. Not the first picture of the moon ever.
Oh, okay.
But the first one in the U.S. Now, it could be the first one ever. I don't know. But
I would think Europe was way ahead of us.
Probably. I don't know. Who invented cameras,
True.
So, but still, and it almost looks fake with the crescent here.
Yeah.
And look at all the splotches and everything. But that's the first photo of the moon taken from the U.S. at least.
That's cool.
Really cool, yeah. 1856, 18-year-old English chemist William Perkin accidentally produced the first synthetic aniline dye, mauvine, purple, during his Easter holiday. And I have a picture for this, too, from my other tab. So, mauvine, right here. Discovered in 1856 by 19-year-old William Henry Perkin, produced from dissolved aniline, the first synthetic organic dye, purple.
I love the comedian that goes on about, and it's about shoes. Different color shoes. Women do, men, black and brown. That's it.
Yeah. Is that the old? Is that old guy who goes on about towels and all that stuff?
No, it's just all about shoes. He goes, she has shoes in periwinkle. What man knows the color of periwinkle? He goes on about that. Funny as all get out.
For a little while, I knew what periwinkle was. I looked it up.
Yeah.
Actually, for anybody who's watching and is interested, periwinkle. Try to. It sounds like a spell. It's like a shade of blue or something. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Well, look at it. They got a whole range there. That's all periwinkle? Come on. There's got to be more.
Well, yeah, blues, pinks, light pink, purple, Oh, so which one is periwinkle?
Yeah.
We need a woman to help us.
Or are they showing us the flowers, thinking periwinkle's a flower?
Maybe it is. I don't know. 1857 here. Moving on up, Elisha Otis installed his first elevator at 488 Broadway in New York City. So the first elevator. Now, what's interesting is the elevator shaft came before the elevator. Now, it was like some 3-4 story building, it wasn't like a high rise or anything.
Right.
But the story goes that whoever the architect was knew that the elevator was coming, didn't know what an elevator was because they hadn't been invented yet, but he knew that such a thing was coming because eventually people would get tired of walking up 75 flights of stairs.
Somebody would figure
So the first elevator shaft was actually square, and the first elevator was round, but the first elevator shaft was actually square, and predicted he put that in his building before the invention of the elevator, knowing that something like that will come and he'll be ready for it.
I wonder if that's determined the size of an elevator. the square box of an
not,
elevator.
Not really, because as I said, the first elevator was round.
Yes,
So,
but I'm saying that eventually
maybe
they made it to fit that, and then it became the standard size.
Maybe.
I'm only guessing here. I'm just
Elevator
talking through
shaft. Hold on. First elevator shaft. Let's see if I can. The elevator shaft was invented before the elevator. Good old Tom Scott. I hope he's living his best life. He's a great guy. But yeah, this is an interesting little video here. The elevator shaft was invented before the elevator. I'm actually going to add this into the underbar section here really quick. Elevator shaft before elevator. And I'm going to add this into the underbar section, of course, after the live stream. Anyway, moving on up, 1858, streetcar was patented by E.A. Gardner of Philadelphia. All right.
Yeah.
And 1861, London's first tram cars, designed by Mr. Train of New York, began operating. That kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. Streetcar, tram car, they're.
I've never heard it. Of course, this is England. Transcar.
Well, it's a tram. It's just, another term for it.
Okay.
It's like a streetcar, tram car.
Yeah.
1880, a flour rolling mill patented by John Stevens of Wisconsin. So cool.
Yeah. Not a flour.
Yeah, no, but just a rolling mill.
Yeah, for flour.
Yeah. 1881, Boers in Britain signed a peace accord ending the First Boer War. We talk about the Second Boer War all the time, but it's like, when was the First Boer War? And it was like, it ended just a decade and change before the outbreak of the Second. So obviously, it wasn't resolved.
Yeah.
So, like Whitey needs to get out of South Africa. That's what he needed to do. They were, colonizing. 1882, the Edmunds Anti-Polygamy Act was adopted by the U.S. to suppress polygamy. 1,300 men are later imprisoned under the act. Whatever happened to equality? They don't talk about that when they're moaning about equality left, right, and center.
Well, wait a minute. They were arrested because they continued to practice polygamy.
Yeah, well, the women were in on it too.
But I mean, they went to jail for breaking the law.
But why weren't the women going to jail for breaking the law?
Oh, well, they had no choice, probably. That they were.
Oh, they put a gun to their head and said, "Marry me."
They had to. When you were told to marry someone, you married someone. That's what a woman had to do.
But
so I'm just trying to take the.
But for polygamy, this is for polygamy.
Yeah.
Like I can understand what you're saying for monogamy.
Well, no, the difference is, okay, here's a better argument. The guy married many women, polygamy. The woman married one man, not polygamy. God, silence is golden. Let's move on.
You make a point. 1901, Australian opera star Dame Nellie Melba received revealed secret of her now famous toast, the Melba toast.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
So, now, because, I remember when we were going to Kino's all the time, they had that overly dehydrated toast.
Yeah.
The one that sucks the water from your mouth when you...
Melba toast.
Yeah. Well, this is where it comes from.
My mom was famous for Melba toast when you were sick. I don't know why. That's what you got.
Huh. Probably because it sucks the toxins out from you with all the water.
It's just crap. Sick or crap healthy. It's terrible.
Yeah. 1903, the Wright brothers first filed a patent for a flying machine, which was granted 3 years later. That took a while.
No kidding.
And I would argue that the Wright brothers are not the first ones to take flight the way they did, but because they got the press, they got the history. But there's some other people.
Before, probably from you.
There is some other guy or whatever in Europe who did it just days prior, but he didn't have the press. So. In 1918, Germany began using long-range gun, the Kaiser Wilhelm Gauchess, the Emperor Wilhelm gun, also known as the Paris gun, to shell Paris from Crêpe and Lyonnais, 75 miles away. Over several days, 303 rounds killed 256 and wounded over 600. So, but 75 miles in 1918.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a date that's amazing.
Yeah, well, so it wasn't an effective weapon, but it was more of a weapon of terror.
Yeah. Where's it coming from?
Well, see, the thing is, there's according to accounts, from the people in Paris, like, they're just sitting there drinking their coffee or whatever.
Shot.
But all of a sudden, things start exploding. Okay, where's the airship? They think they're getting bombed. Like, there's no airship, there's no planes, there's no artillery anywhere around. What's going on? Eventually they figured out, okay, well, it is an artillery from 75. They're somehow shelling us from 75 miles away. What the hell?
But the scary part of it is, like you say, what it's intended for is once the dust settles, so to speak, some are killed, whatever, there's nothing here. Where'd it come from?
Yeah, and at any time you can just get hit. You don't even see it coming.
Right. You don't see it coming. You don't hear it.
But see, 303 rounds kills 256 people. So it took over one round to kill one person.
Yeah.
So it's very ineffective.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, it's the concept of being able to
and
to
yet
get
at that
hits,
date, very effective.
For morale and all that stuff. 1919, 8th Congress of the Russian Communist Party re-established a 5-member Politburo, which became the center of political power in the Soviet Union. Original members are Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, Joseph Stalin, Lev Kamenev, and Nikolai Krasensky. Well, those last two I don't recognize, but a couple of these, Stalin went to war with Lenin and Trotsky. Yeah. Well, after Lenin died, he went to war with Trotsky.
Those are the famous ones.
Yeah.
Trotsky, Lenin, and Stalin,
Also in the year 1919, Bashkir Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic designated as the first autonomous republic of the Soviet Union. All right. 1919 as well, here we go. Benito Mussolini formed fascist group Fasci di Combattimento, the Italian fighting bands, in Milan, Italy, later reorganized into the National Fascist Party.
So he was around long before.
But even before what I said, I thought he was in the early to mid-20s. Even before that, 1919, World War I had barely, ended like a year prior.
And that's probably where he pulled his power from, the fear of those wars.
Actually, yeah, it had barely, because it was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So 11 in the morning on the November 11th, 1918, is when that war ended. And now we're in March of the next year. So it's only been 5 months.
Yeah. That's right.
Wow. So I had no idea fascism went all the way back to that part. Well, fascism and communism kind of started the same way out of the leftist ideals.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then later on, Hitler rose to power in the mid-30s and all that stuff, and Mussolini.
But you were right when we had that conversation.
No, I was wrong.
Well, yeah, but you was even longer. But
I was closer than you, if anything, but...
Yeah, you were talking about how long he had been in power.
Yeah.
And he's not in power yet,
no.
But they formed.
Yeah, this is when they formed. So
it may have been 21, 22, 23 by the time he got into power. Probably took 3-4 years anyway.
The early 20s, I would say, like 23...
Well, you dead on then, as far as taking power.
Yeah.
You didn't form it and take over.
No,
happen
not yet.
Yeah.
No. Moving on up, 1922, the first airplane landed at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not on the Capitol.
No.
but in the
Capitol.
In the city.
Yeah.
1933, German Reichstag hastily passed the Enabling Act, and President Paul von Hindenburg signed it the same day, granting Adolf Hitler dictatorial powers. Now that is interesting, because this is the same calendar date that Mussolini formed the fascist group. True. Not when it was later reorganized or when Mussolini came to power, but this is step one. So I'm wondering if Hitler, who idolized Mussolini, intentionally did this, because you know how people are with dates and everything, So
I would agree with you what you're saying there. We don't know, but I would guess it to be that way.
1936, physician Joseph G. Hamilton injected a leukemia patient with a sodium radioscope, the first intravenous injection of a human with a radioscope. No, I don't know what a radioscope is.
No.
What is a radioscope? Radioscope. Let's see here. Images. And while I'm doing that, do we have any comments yet? Nothing on Rumble. Anything on YouTube? Not yet. All right. Oh, okay. So I guess just a microscope?
That's what it looks like.
But injects a leukemia patient with a sodium radioscope. But you're not injecting...
No,
a microscope into that.
That's to visualize something.
But what is he? But he is physically putting something into somebody else.
That's what it says. Yeah.
But what is he putting in?
I don't know.
What is a sodium radioscope? I'm not getting pictures. I'm just getting text.
It would be he injected him with sodium, would it not?
Oh, I'm not even reading it right. Radioisotope.
Oh,
not a radioscope, a radioisotope. Okay, so it's an isotope is a nuclear thing. So he's injecting him with radiation, I think.
Yeah, okay.
With nuclear material. Okay. And leukemia, that's cancer. So would this be the beginnings of chemo? Yeah.
And what date is this?
36.
At least they had something in mind.
This sounds like chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on up to 1940, first radio broadcast of Truth or Consequences on CBS.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining, tell me the truth or consequences.
Yeah.
You know? 1940 as well, the Lahore Resolution, Quardad e Lahore, calling for independent Muslim states, was adopted by the All Indian Muslim League. That sounds like Pakistan.
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, Pakistan came out, as their own independent nation from the Muslim population of India when India was forming.
Yeah, and there's still fight today about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was in 1940, so I don't know.
Well, that sounds about right. Because India didn't become India until slightly after slightly after World War II. Before that, they were the British Raj. And then after World War II, with the Geneva Convention and the Treaty of Versailles was World War I. But the Geneva Convention and all that stuff put an end to all that colonialism crap. So because of Italy and all of their colonies in Africa and England and France, and that's why World War II we fought in Africa first because of Italy. We had this whole conversation the other day while we were walking.
Yeah.
But this sounds like the beginning of Pakistan here.
In the heart of World War II? Wow. Maybe. The exact time that maybe it would happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's busy fighting. Let's separate, I mean, the same thing happened with Vietnam. Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh rose to power shortly after World War II because for the past half decade or so, France wasn't even France anymore. They were occupied by Germany. So who owns Vietnam anymore? Nobody. So become independent. Take advantage.
Yeah.
So 1945, during the Battle of Okinawa, the U.S. Navy ships bombed the Japanese island of Okinawa in preparation for the Allied invasion. This is the largest battle of the Pacific War in World War II. No, this is when we were...
It had to be a hellhole.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, well, that's just... That looks like it's on fire. That's an aircraft. That has to be... That's not a smokestack. That's straight up white
It could
flame.
be coming... Here's more over here. I think it's coming off the island where they're bombing. They hit something.
No, that'd be too small of an island because we don't see it on the other side of the ship here.
You don't see the island at all.
Yeah. No, I think that actually British Navy vessel HMS Formidable on fire during the Battle of Okinawa after being struck by a kamikaze. So it was.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so the British were,
So kamikaze, they flew the plane into it. Even that soon.
Well, 1945. That's nearing the end.
True.
45 as well, the Swallow Sidecar Company, headed by William Lyons, agrees to change its name to Jaguar. They could have chosen a better way to say the Swallow Sidecar Company, headed by,
Okay, stop.
1956, Pakistan proclaimed an Islamic Republic and Commonwealth National Day. Now that's pretty interesting. As I was saying earlier, in 1940, here we are 16 years later on the same calendar dates.
Yeah.
So from the proposition to the execution, I don't know. I think this.
Well, I would think they had picked the exact day.
Yeah.
In honor of our beginning.
The Lahore Resolution.
Yeah.
Calling for an independent Muslim state adopted by the All India Muslim League.
Yeah. So I would think that's not a coincidence.
Yeah, I think that was the beginning of Pakistan.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving on up, 1956 as well, Sudan became independent. That's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah. 1980, Australian cricketer Alan Border became the first and only batsman to reach 150 in each innings of a test in the third test versus Pakistan in Lahore.
Cricket.
All right. But see, this just backs up what I was saying, the Lahore thing and Pakistan. So a cricket article is kind of backing up the whole thing we were just talking about. History is amazing. 1980,
cricket is terrible.
Well, hey, we read an article yesterday, and like somebody died over cricket. Remember?
I die every time you bring one up.
Well, actual like legitimate death.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
1980, Nicaraguan National Literary Crusade began. Crusade teachers swear in plazas across the country to exterminate ignorance. In just 5 months, they will successfully reduce illiteracy from 50% to 12%. So from 5-0 to 1-2. That's really good.
Yeah, but it depends on what they're teaching. It could be ignorance is bliss.
Well, no, they're reducing illiteracy.
I understand that, but what are they teaching? To reduce literacy.
True, but now.
No, I cheer it. But the first thing I react to, what are they teaching?
Yeah, what are they teaching? But they're teaching them how to read, so it doesn't matter if they can read; they can think. So if they're being taught to read, bad things, they'll eventually figure out those are bad things. Now they know how to read, and they can start reading good things.
Or in the teaching, you can indoctrinate. Then you don't think.
Well, I mean, I'd rather try to give them a chance.
Yeah, I give them credit. I go hoorah.
Yeah.
All said and done. I'm just throwing
a potential
apple in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and I'm not going to discount what you're saying.
I say hoorah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, hoorah. 1981, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled states could require, with some exceptions, parental notification when teenage girls sought abortions. Oh, my God.
Wait, read that again.
U.S. Supreme Court rules states could require, so they're not mandating, they're just saying that they could require. With some exceptions, parental notification. No, parents should
always.
Until they turn 18, they're kids, and they're the property of their parents. Period. This is not about could or should or whatever.
And here's the problem with a ruling like that.
It just opens the door for so much awful
It opens the door to where we
stuff.
are today.
Yes.
A lot of the educational system, not all, but a lot of it,
believes
believes they are responsible for teaching your kids whatever they want to teach. The family, the parents are not.
Well, see, here's
it's
the
exact
thing.
opposite.
See,
the parents are 100% responsible for their kids.
Here's the
for
thing.
everything.
Here's the thing. I 100% agree, and you're 100% true. However, the parents have created this environment because as soon as you brought in things like sexual education into the classrooms, that's the parents outsourcing what the parents should be responsible for.
Yes.
But they refuse to do that because, I don't want to have that talk with my child. Let's just have some random teacher have that talk with my child and a whole bunch of other children in a government environment. Yeah, that's the right decision. And then they're like, don't tell them that. Well, then why don't you accept your own responsibility? It's the parents' fault that things are the way they are in the educational system today because they refuse to accept their responsibility as parents.
Okay. You are correct. I like what you're saying, but you're taking a bit of a different issue. I'm saying, fine for the education to believe that. Not fine. But what you can't do is do it secretly.
Well, they're doing it secretly because the camel's nose.
But if they expose it to the parents, then it's the parents' responsibility to say, no, you can't teach my kid that. If you're going to teach that in the classroom, I demand for you to take my kid out while you're teaching it.
However, none of that would have happened if they hadn't forced the educational system to have sex ed.
This is the seed, what we're talking about here.
Yes. Moving on up to 1981 as well, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a law making statutory struggle snuggle a crime only for men. So much for equality.
Wow. That's not right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just not right.
That's just not right.
No.
So much, they don't talk about this, when they want equality, the men should get punished, but, women could struggle snuggle men. Women could abuse men. Just yesterday we talked about that article where a woman teacher convinced her male underage students to murder her husband so she can have an affair.
I remember that, yeah.
But because of societal standards, we don't hold women accountable.
No, that is just wrong.
Yeah.
That is just wrong.
I want equality. Not just for women, but for men too. 1983, U.S. President Ronald Reagan introduced Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as the Star Wars. Oh, yeah. 1982, 2 U.S. scientists claim they have produced diffusion at room temperature. That's really big. Even today, we all know about Noah. Yeah. And well, not the biblical Noah, but our friend here, Noah.
Yeah.
He's every now and then one of the things that he goes he pops off about is, oh, blah, blah, they unlocked a room temperature fusion and all that stuff, because and that's a big deal.
It's called cold fusion.
Cold fusion.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's cold fusion and room temperature fusion.
Oh, okay, it's different. Okay.
Cold fusion is cold.
Yeah.
They're being fused because the act of fusing.
I always thought it was the lack.
The act of fusion produces so much heat that it would be a catastrophe. It would be a nuclear explosion. But if you keep it condensed in a cold temperature, you're keeping it within a pocket.
Okay.
If you can do that without the cold, now you're doing something that would supposed to create an explosion without the explosion.
Okay.
Like physically, it doesn't make any sense.
Well explained. Thank you.
If I did explain it well, I'm not sure.
Did.
I could be.
You did.
Well,
if you're
maybe
correct.
If I'm correct, that's what I'm saying.
Well, don't say it with such authority then.
Well, like I'm just talking. Not really out of my rear end, but just talking. If I'm wrong, then the internet will let me know.
Someone correct him, please.
Yeah. Moving on up to 1996, Taiwan held its first direct elections and chose Lee Teng-hui as president. All right. Pretty cool.
What year again?
1996. Taiwan.
Their first election?
Their first direct elections. Whatever direct election. I don't know. Like, immediate? Like,
I don't know.
Let's look this up here, actually. What is a direct election?
Taiwan, direct election. What is it? I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, well, you're right. Taiwan holds presidential and parliamentary elections on Saturday. Elections in Taiwan. Okay, well, because I put in Taiwan, it's going to tell me about Taiwan. It's a direct election. Here we go. It is a system of choosing political office holders in which the voters directly cast ballots for the persons or political party that they want to see elected. The method of which the winner or winners of a direct election are chosen depends upon the electoral system used.
Okay, so this is the first time they got to vote.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds like they had been passing on, who was going to run them, or someone could have been in there for 50 years, who knows? Because they were formed in, 48, 49, something like that?
Somewhere in there.
Maybe 50, as late as 50, because they escaped to Taiwan from
Mao Zedong.
Mao Zedong.
Yeah.
So I don't know what year that was, so maybe someone was in there for 30 years. Okay, now we'll elect the next person. Who knows? But okay, that makes sense. Thank you for looking that up.
1999, Outside, Inside Out, Livin' La Vida Loca, sung by Ricky Martin, was released, went on to sell over 8 million copies. Wow. It was a good song. I like it.
Yeah.
2001, the Russian Mir space station was disposed of, breaking up in the atmosphere before falling into the southern Pacific Ocean near Fiji.
Wow.
Yep, space station. 2010, Barack Hussein Obama signed the Affordable Care Act, nicknamed Obamacare, putting a further strain on taxpayers and allowing freeloaders an even easier parasitic life.
Yeah, that's the one they, at their convenience, they put it down as a tax, and no, it's not a tax, just to manipulate the rules.
Yep. Now, you want to know why I always call our main source, leftist?
Why?
Because this last part here, putting a further strain on taxpayers, I edited that because on our source it said expanding the availability and affordability of health insurance.
Affordability, no.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
You take your liberal propaganda and shove it right up your tailpipe.
The point is, it's a power play for the government.
Yeah.
If the more the government control of your life, the more power they have.
Yep. Afuela. 2013, the Walt Disney Company launched premium cable Disney Junior Channel with 24-hour programming for the 2 to 7-year-old audience. And that is very concerning with what's been, known about over the past couple of years and how, they target children and how hard they went after The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, look into it out there, everybody. Disney acquired portions of the 20th Century Fox, and those portions were in charge of the production of the movie Sound of Freedom, which is all about trying
the animation division they took.
Well, no, just the production.
Okay.
Because that movie was done in the can, ready to go since 2013, and then Disney. After they acquired, I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why they acquired that portion of Fox was just to do this.
Keep it in the can.
But, they fought for over 10 years to keep it down. Why? Because it exposes what Disney really wants to do. They go after children.
They finally released, I believe this weekend, Snow White. And apparently it's been very disappointing. I don't know for a fact. But
Yeah, well, because first off, despite being called
I'm
Snow
talking
White,
about the financial numbers of the disappointing.
Oh, it's more Disney woke garbage. So, let's get back into the history here. 2016 GPR investigation of Shakespeare's tomb at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford concluded the bard's skull has probably been stolen. Okay, well, if it's not there, then obviously it was taken.
Where did I put that? Maybe they misplaced it.
Talk about losing your head. 2019, Syrian Democratic Forces announced that the last Islamic State territory had been retaken, raising flags in Baghouz, Syria, and ending the 5-year Islamic State Caliphate. All right, bye ISIS. 2021, cargo ship Ever Given got stuck in the Suez Canal, Egypt. A 400-meter megaship. It completely blocks the shipping canal.
Yeah.
Remember when they did that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and that was intentional.
Yeah,
They intentionally did that. 2021 as well, the first ever tweet by Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, just setting on my Twitter, sold for $2.9 million in digitally autographed version. So not a real autograph, but a digitally autographed. We spoke about the first tweet yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was in like I don't know, 2014 or whatever. But so it's kind of like how people buy frames from movies.
Yeah.
Movie still or whatever.
Yeah.
So they bought a framed, I guess hit the first ever tweet for $2.9 million.
Wow.
Ridiculous. 2023, Canada recorded record population growth, but plus 2.7%, adding 1 million people in 2022, mostly through illegal immigration.
I was just going to say through immigration.
Yeah. Mostly through, and I only put in the word illegal here because they say mostly through immigration. Yeah, but it's illegal immigration.
Not all of it.
I'm not saying all. Mostly through illegal
Yeah.
immigration. Not all through illegal, but mostly through. But 1 million people, that's ridiculous. They have, the whole world has a problem. Moving on up to 2023 as well, TikTok CEO Shou Chew questioned for over 4 hours by a U.S. congressional hearing over its Chinese security risks. They all need to go. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these need to go. They're all compromised, all of them. And then last but not least, 2023, Utah was the first state to limit social media for minors, including an overnight curfew and parental consents. All right, that's cool and all, but the parents should be in charge of their own kids. This is just yet another outsourcing to Big Daddy government or Big Brother government.
The government is, I don't like it, but I don't like the law at all. But what they're saying is enough, parents, control what your kids are doing. You're not doing it, so do it.
Yeah.
I don't like laws like that.
I don't like laws like that either, but clearly the parents are just incapable of handling their own spawn.
If you're going to do that, if you're really frustrated with your society, start running ads and everything, be aware of your kids, see what they're doing, stop them in the midnight, they need sleep, whatever you want to do to indoctrinate the parents into it.
Yeah.
But don't pass a damn law.
I remember, speaking in this topic, I remember this one comedian was going on about in the 90s, if you're a kid, as long as you're home right as the streetlights come on, you're fine. Your parents didn't know where you were. If you were starting a fire, they didn't care. They threw you out of the house. Get out.
I'd leave in the morning, and you'd see me.
And
you gotta be home at night. Yeah.
Yeah, but then he started going on as I said, back in the 90s, early 2000s, they actually had a campaign with commercials on TV after it started getting dark out. It's dark out. Do you know where your kids are? Oh yeah, that's right. I have kids.
Think about it in today's terms. Let's say 12 years old. I have a bike. I'm totally mobile. Don't hear from me for 8-10 hours. What the hell?
Yeah. I mean,
today they go, oh my God.
I mean, think about it like this. As soon as an infant can crawl, if you stop staring at them for half of a second, they're gone.
Yeah.
Then they grow up and they have a bike, they're just going to be gone faster.
Longer and farther.
Yeah,
you know, just all normal.
Here's a wild concept. Be responsible for your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, that shall conclude the show today. Please check the underbar of the description below for any links that you might find interesting, including but not limited to all things Omni Coalition. For all of you and all of us, I am Alexander.
Golden Loon.
And you, viewer, are you. Thank you so much for watching it. Whether it was live or at some other point in the space-time continuum is irrelevant. I appreciate your view and your patronage and all that stuff. And until you catch us next time, whenever that is, wherever that is, don't forget to look right and left at every intersection, rate 5 thumbs, and subscribe. Toodles!